This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh Revi. Today, our topic of discussion is Tibet, China, India, and the US. And our guest is Claude Arpi. He's a historian, an author, a Tibetologist, and a Distinguished Fellow at the Center of Excellence for Himalayan Studies at the Shiv Nadar Institution of Eminence. Claude, thanks again for coming in. Glad to have you after a while.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I just wanted to ask you on your thoughts. Like, for example, Prime Minister Modi did not go to the SCO summit. The dates, unofficially we were told it's because of Parliament. But Parliament was adjourned maybe a couple of days before that. He went to Russia soon after the SCO summit. Do you get a sense that maybe India-China relations are at such a point that the government doesn't want high-level discussions at bilaterals like this, because if you had gone and had to meet Xi Jinping or didn't have to meet Xi Jinping, that would have meant something?
Yes, certainly you would have to meet Xi Jinping. So the External Affairs Minister, Dr Jaishankar, made it very clear, as long as the Ladakh issue is not resolved, despite 21 round of talks, two places remain to be solved, that there will be you can't have normal relations. So I think it's part of this. During his visit to the Dr. Jaishankar met Wang Yi, they said they would do something about it, but it's doubtful that China would withdraw from these two places, because for them, and for Xi Jinping in particular, it would be a loss of faith vis-à-vis his own Central Committee and his own Politburo. It is often said that Mr. Modi has Parliament to answer, has the people of India to answer, but President Xi Jinping has his Central Committee and the Politburo. That's why the third plenum, which will take place on Monday, has been postponed for more than a year, because there's no agreement, and it would be also questioned very seriously if he would give away something in Depsang and Demchok. This is my reading, but with China we're always guessing, because it's very...
But how then, if this standoff between India and China, both positions are very rigid, and there's nothing that seems to be looking in the near horizon to change that. So how do you visualize the Indian government's policy under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's third term vis-a-vis China?
I think they were taken by surprise when it happened in May 2020. The China advanced in 5 places. Probably they wanted to advance a few kilometers here and there. And you have to remember the Garwan incident took place on Xi Jinping's birthday. So certainly some of the generals, particularly the commander in the Western Theater Command, General Zhao Zhongxi, he wanted to please his boss and do something, believing that India would not react. But India reacted in a very strong manner and posted an extra division in Ladakh and really start developing the infrastructure. If you go to Ladakh, you have been more than me, and you know better than me that you can see all the roads coming up, and to Shushul, to Nyoma, the airport is coming in Nyoma, all Koyul, Demchok, all these places have been developed. So the situation is not what it was in May 2020, and now it's very difficult for China to extricate itself from this, especially when they are not doing too well economically, or they are not doing well at all economically. So it will take time. I don't think they will give away in Depsang and Demchok.
But the Indian government's policy in the third term, do you see any change in that, necessity of change? There's certain, former Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale has written about the need to keep up talks or dialogue despite deterrence.
I don't know what means keep dialogue on, but it depends. In Shushul, it's mainly with the army, though the representative of the Ministry of External Affairs is participating, and also there is a diplomatic talks going on. This will go on because, but it doesn't mean that there will be a progress. And India, during negotiation, have always been the loser, is what historically, as an historian, when I look at the detail, I look at every cable or correspondence during 1954, the Panchil, it became the Panchil, but it used to call the Tibet Conference, and it was about Tibet. And at the end, India lost everything. So during negotiation, India is not winning, but at the same time, I agree that India should keep engaging, and they are engaging. The fact that Dr. Jaishankar met Wang Yi, his counterpart, during the CSO meeting, it means that they are exchanging. Now, I'm very happy that there's a new foreign secretary who knows very well about China. Mr. Vikram Mishri, Ambassador Vikram Mishri, has been posted there. He was deputy NSA, and he is someone who knows China well. I think one of the issues for Modi 3, like for Modi 2, he has not enough people, whether in the in the diplomats, or even in the army, or even in the agencies, who have a very deep knowledge of China. And because for decades we concentrated on Pakistan, and the knowledge of Pakistan is much higher than the knowledge of China. It's changing. I can see in the army, for example, many China study group or like that are taking place. So it's slowly changing, but there's not enough officers speaking Chinese, whether it's in the agency or on the army or on the diplomatic circles. So I think it's a good thing that Ambassador Mishri has taken over as a foreign secretary, but there's not enough people. What we require, what India requires today, is more people studying China and knowing China.
Mm-hmm. The US now, it's currently in the middle of presidential election phase. But do you see any change there in terms of Tibet policy, the Tibet Resolve Act? Then you had bipartisan lawmakers, Nancy Pelosi, Fall, who came to Dharamshala, met the Dalai Lama, had very strong words to say about Xi Jinping, that the Dalai Lama's legacy and his life would last much longer than Xi Jinping's.
As you say, the US is going through the election, so during the election many things can be said, but the fact that they passed the Resolve Act will not be changed. And if you look in the 40s, the American position was not that clear. And early 70s, when Kissinger started clandestinely going to China to prepare President Nixon's visit, they just dropped the Tibetans. And they could drop the Tibetan again tomorrow, despite the strong words of Mrs. Pelosi. But there's an act now saying that historically Tibet was an independent country. So I think India would learn about this, because India, more than any other country in the world, knew that Tibet was an independent country. India had a mission, a full-fledged mission till 1952, and later from 52 to 62, Consulate General. India had 3 trade agencies, very big trade agencies in Tibet, in Yatung, Gyaltsen, and Gartok in Western Tibet. So India knew that Tibet in 51, 52, when the Chinese came, was an independent nation. And the border that India has, it's a border with Tibet, because the 1914 agreement between Sir Henry McMahon, the Foreign Secretary of India, and Lotchen Chatra, the Prime Minister of Tibet, what we call today the McMahon line, is between Tibet and independent Tibet. And China at that time, they don't object to that line. They objected to the border between China and Tibet. That was the main bone of contention, the main dispute. China never objected in 1914 and the following years about what we call the McMahon line. But I feel, I've been telling people, I've been writing that we should change the name. It should be called McMahon Chatra's line, because both have put their seal, have signed on this map like that in two parts, and it's between Tibet and India. So it should be called the McMahon Chatras line.
Interesting point. At least we here at StratNews make it a point whenever we're reporting to call it either the Tibet occupied China border or the Tibet border. But going back to the Pelosi and lawmakers' visit, do you see any change in terms of, one, they came to meet the Dalai Lama just days before he was going to the US. So they could have met him when he went there. Why did they come here? Why were they allowed to come here? And not only that, post the meeting and such strong words against China and Xi Jinping, the Prime Minister met them, the NSA was present, the External Affairs Minister also met the lawmakers. So do you see any?
Maybe a slight change, maybe a slight hope, slight light at the end of the tunnel, but it will take time. You can't expect a big change in the government of India's stand. Government of India is not going tomorrow say Tibet is an independent country. India has a border, long border, nearly 3,500 kilometers, the LAC only with Tibet. So there will not be a big change, or there will be not a law passed in the parliament. But we can hope that the fact that Ms. Pelosi and her colleagues came just before Dalai Lama was leaving is a sign that they wanted to show the government of India, because after all, Dharamsala is in India, the government of India has to give the agreement. They could have said, you meet in New York. And as you mentioned, they met the Prime Minister after, of course, not to speak about Tibet, but there was a photo of all American delegates coming. So it's a small change. I think what is required is many, many small changes in the way that we see that boundary issue, that the way we see China, or the way we see Tibet. And the government will not declare tomorrow that Tibet is an independent, or we are fighting for independence of Tibet. But many things like changing the name of the border systematically in the media, as well the official declaration, we should call Indo-Tibet border, because it has been for millennia the Indo-Tibet border. It was a border which was not a single policeman was guarding, and everyone could go to Kailash Mansarovar for the yatra, or you can trade to Chumbi Valley in a yatong without any identification papers, anything. You just cross in Natula or in Jalepla or in Lipuk or in Chipkila. You just cross, and so many monks, so many pilgrims, so many traders. So this has changed. What is very striking for me, and upsetting, I would say, there is these maps were circulating of the BRI, that Belt and Road Initiative of Mr. Xi Jinping. Now, if you look at this map, there's land road going north, and there's a southern road, maritime road going south. And there's absolutely in between, it's blank. So there's not anymore any Silk Road or whatever name you call them, trade roads through the Himalayas. All the Himalayan border have been closed in '62. And even the trade, I've seen in the morning's newspaper article complaining that Chipkila has not reopened after 2019. And there was 3 trade ports, land ports officially open in Natula, in Lipuk, and in Chipkila in Himachal. They are closed. They were doing minimum trade, but at least it was something. Now, after 2019, fully closed. So what has been really, this border was a place of contact between the Tibetan plateau and the subcontinent. The people would go for religious purpose, for economic purpose, for education, and it has all been close. And China at the same time is promoting these new belts and roads which were not existing in the past.
Yeah.
All the trade from Ladakh was going either via them towards Western Tibet or Karakoram, Central Asia. And they were very powerful business houses doing trade, and the entire population in Uttarakhand on the border was living. That's why you have so many of these ghost villages.
These incremental steps that you're talking about, since you can't expect something major immediately, you were, and I have been talking over a long time about Tibetan refugees in India, younger generations of them, many of them who are leaving India. Is there something that can be done to prevent that, and why should it be done?
I think it's quite a tragedy for me. Maybe if Tibetan, they want to have a better life, or what they believe is a better life. I'm not sure that it's a better life in the West. Especially these days, it becomes more and more difficult. But I think government of India should do efforts to study, to see what could be done. Like I remember, I don't know if it's still existing, but in GNU, Tibetan students had to pay the foreign fees 4 or 5 years ago. I think they have they asked the government to change this policy. But small thing like that. Or we should also encourage the Tibetan to take Indian citizenship, or provide them some alternative, like something like OCI, some sort of dual citizenship, because after all, most of them are born here. Why should they not be entitled to teach in a university, to get a government job? They are keen to keep their IC, their identification certificate, showing that they are Tibetan, on which they are Tibetan. But if there was a sort of OCI, the government has to study what I cannot say for the Home Ministry, but something that will encourage them to stay here and help them also. Help them to get job and things like that. I think it's a big asset. Like His Holiness is a biggest asset. Whether you call it card or not card, card is not a nice word, but His Holiness is a great asset for India. So India also should say that we would welcome the 15th Dalai Lama in India the way we have welcomed the 14th Dalai Lama. That could be a small declaration, which would have a meaningful declaration from the Ministry of External Affairs. So I hope that Dr. Jaishankar listened to that, and we have welcomed the 14th Dalai Lama in 59. We will welcome the 15th Dalai Lama if he decides to take birth or emanate in India.
I think it's more than a small statement if that comes out. But you are saying that India should make its position vis-a-vis the succession of the Dalai Lama more clear, and nothing is more clearer than what you were just saying.
Absolutely. You see, India is a secular country. It's written in the constitution. China is an atheist country, but they decide everything on the religious affairs particularly of Tibet. They have no business to select the Dalai Lama. They don't know anything about reincarnation. India will not do like that. India will not dictate or tell the Dalai Lama you should do that way or that way or that way. It's entirely his decision and people around him, and he should announce it as soon as possible, because India has some concern with all the Himalayan population from Tawang to Sikkim to Laos, Spiti, all of that. But India could very well say that we will welcome the 15th Dalai Lama. He will be welcome to take birth in that country, or if we decide to emanate, we will provide the same facility that we have. It's not interfering in the religious affair of Tibet or in the decision of the Dalai Lama to select the way he wants to come back. But it's a small gesture, and will give a message to China that we are secular. We are not interfering in his religious business, but we want to welcome him.
Again, I'd say not a small gesture. I think it'll be a big gesture.
Small thing, like Armstrong
very-
when he went on the moon, it was a small step. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But Claude, you've written many articles, but I'm saying recently one of your articles, which was talking about history and how India and Tibet post-independence and how relations had changed since then. And the basic thrust of your article was that everyone didn't want to rock the boat, and you should at some point of time. How can you explain that thought, and how do you the counter to that? Which is the reason why no one wanted to rock the boat is don't provoke the Chinese, don't poke the dragon.
Yeah, I think this sentence was first used by the American ambassador in Anderson in 1950, and he was discussing with his Western colleague and said that the government of India don't want to rock the boat. So, but not wanting to rock the boat, we have a situation where nothing has moved since 70 years, and I mean, you don't rock the boat, but nothing happens also. And at the same time, you forget India's interest. India's interest in 1954 during the Tibet conference, which became the Panchil, was to keep what India had in Tibet and to fix the border. Nothing was done. It has going on, except for a very short time when Lal Bahadur Shastri became Prime Minister. Before he went to Tashkent, he told Mr. Chakapa was His Holiness representative in Delhi, when I come back from Tashkent, I will recognize your government in exile. And unfortunately, he never came back from Tashkent. And after the policy of not rocking the boat. Now, I think it was very good that Prime Minister Modi went to Wuhan and invited President Xi Jinping in Mahabalipuram. But it ended up by the Ladakh confrontation. So my point is that without rocking the boat, we can gentle shake the boat. Let's gentle shake the boat. We don't want to fully rock the boat, but just keep all India's interests into consideration, something which was not done in the 50s and the 60s, except during Lal Bahadur Shastri's time, and even in the 70s, when Indira Gandhi was there, it was not done. First, keep India's interests into consideration. Forget about America. We are happy that they have taken that stand. Today, we received Nancy Pelosi in a colleague, fine. But India should look at its own interests and specifically the border issue. So it's not rocking the boat, it's gently shaking the boat. In Indian way, you should gently shake the boat. But I think we should not be bothered also too much by China being upset. It's very easy to be upset. I can say, I'm upset. After all, they have killed more than 1 million Tibetans. Tibetans should be upset. They have destroyed their monastery. They have disturbed their way of life. There in May of 2020, they went to Galwan or to Upspring or to the Fingers or to Depsang, Denchok. We are the one who should be upset in India, no? Not the. We should not bother too much by Chinese being upset. And by the way, when Blinken, Secretary of State, sent a message for the Dalai Lama for his birthday, immediately the speaker, the spokesperson in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, he complained. He said, why his Secretary of State is putting his nose into Chinese affair, internal affair. But he didn't say anything about the same message that the Prime Minister sent to His Holiness Dalai Lama in New York. They didn't say a word about it. So when it's convenient, they will do a lot of noise, and now they are not happy because India wants to build some dams. I'm not a fan of the dams. I think it will destroy the environment, but it's not their business at all. India wants to put dams in Arunachal.
True.
So let them not be happy.
Claude Arpi, it's always enjoyable talking to you. Thanks again for giving us some time and coming to our studios.
Thank you. Thank you to you.
And to all our viewers, do give us feedback on this interview. Follow all our social media handles for the latest that we put up on our website, or interviews like this with Claude Arpi on our YouTube channel. This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh Revi.